Hello. This is episode 1 of the Energetic Experiment series. It's a series that I will be doing all throughout 2025. These are 12 experiments helping me to develop a relationship between play and mastery. Make them kiss. For January, the challenge is to pray 5 times a day. Obviously, I got the inspiration from Islam, but my definition of prayer is going to be broad. Can you hear my jacket? In order for us all to be on the same page, I'm going to share what my definition of prayer is, or specifically what elements have to be present for it to count as prayer. The first thing is intention. Just generally, I have to move into a practice with the intent to get closer to my definition of divinity. Secondly, I'm going to light a candle. It's an indicator to me, as well as my ancestors, that I am speaking to them. I'm doing something with the intention of communicating with them. Those are the only 2 elements that I am using as my rubric for prayer. Similar to the morning menu, I have a menu of particular practices that I'm happy to consider prayer. And in order to give myself variety, each of the 5 will have a set practice, but if I don't want to do that, I can choose anything off of the menu. I'm gonna cut to inside Athena because I think it's about to rain. Okay, so let's talk about the process. So the first prayer, which will be just before sunrise, is going to be the typical prayer that I do personally, which is talking to my ancestors and whomever else watches over me. The second prayer, which will be close to noon, is going to be dancing to the song Water from Wine by Amare. I chose this song specifically because it feels already very spiritual to me, and I like the lyrics enough that I'm willing to make it a prayer. The third one, which I have determined will be approximately 3:30ish, will be tapping to the morning minders that I do. I've talked about this in another video, but I have these flashcards of reminders. And then the 4th prayer, which will be around dinner time, that will be a recitation. And the 5th prayer, which I will do right before I get into bed, will also be a recitation. As I mentioned, I have a menu of other options that can be prayer practices. That includes meditating, breath work, stretching, I think, if there's no other stimulation. So no music, no YouTube videos, for example. Drinking a hot bevy. Yeah. I also think that, again, if you're not doing anything else and you're just really taking the time to inhale and smell and ingest the tea, I think that can also be prayerful. And another thing I wanted to mention, the recitations are something that I have written. I mean, I haven't written them yet, but the recitations will be some short passage or poem that I have written, and I will just read/recite those. That's all for the process. Let's get into what actually happened, shall we? It is January 1st, 8:25. I am late to the first day, in part because, of course, I went to a New Year's Eve party, and also in part because trying to film impromptu, I'm realizing that that's not something that happens. And now I'm gonna do my first little prayer, so bye. So a lot of my practice around this is influenced by my time practicing Ubangoma, which is religion based out of the peoples of South Africa. So that's why lighting the candle matters to me. There's also a few other things I do. I'm more awake than I should be, I think, for these prayers to really hit the way that I like them to. Hi! So it's the 25th of January, and there's still 5 more days with the experiment, but I wanted to record this part now because I wanted to. I'm ovulating, so we got to get on camera. We've got to get on camera. I don't know what to tell you. Of the days that are currently available, there were only 3 days that I did not do all 5 prayers. So I have a nice little outline for these kind of post experiments, or like the experiment wrap up bit. So let's start with amendments to the process / rubric. If you remember, because the video, it's the same video you were just watching. But if you remember, the initial rubric was to light a candle and have the explicit intent of connecting. On January 3rd, I added that piece of it would be to announce myself. It allowed me to know that this is what I'm about to do. What was surprising, mirror work is a part of my prayer, and I didn't really realize that, but my altar is a table of mirrors, as in like it has a bunch of mirror panels on it. And so I had not really realized that that was a part of my prayer until I was somewhere else and felt weird. And then I thought it would be more imposing. Ultimately, it became mundane pretty quickly. It was pretty easy to integrate into my daily life. So it was very easy for me to, if somebody asked me to hang out, I would like plan and slot in my prayers around that. It was really easy for me to make this a part of my regular life, which I thought was really surprising. I just thought it would be more imposing and harder to navigate. The hardest part of this experiment was actually filming, which is interesting. I'm wondering how that's going to move forward for the rest of this year, because I'm going to continue to film these. At least as of now, I've decided to continue to film these. Just in general, I felt like a disdain, I think, for trying to capture the moment and share it. I'm going to throw to a me who was fresh in that feeling. Hi. It is 5:35 a.m. I wanted to address the fact, or the experience, I guess, that I feel obligated to document the first prayer. It feels the most like a spectacle. So I feel this obligation to bring you into it. However, because it is the first prayer, I also feel this one, or the intention of this prayer, the most. A piece of me, a large piece of me, feels whorish bringing a camera into this. I'm trying to become one with God right now. I'm trying to commune with my ancestors, and there's something really interesting to me about this tension that I feel, where I'm like, oh, but I know that this is the particular prayer that I feel like is the, I want to say the most salacious, I guess, for someone else to be a part of. It's also like, well, this is the most sacred time. There's something, very much something, that I don't like about, setting up lights and a camera angle. And yet here we are, babes. Camera's on. Light is engaged. All right, I'm done. And then the other hardest part was the third prayer, actually. So the third prayer was always, for me, the hardest one, or often, I guess I should say, the hardest one to get myself to do, because the other ones felt like spacers in my day. It is marking like, okay, we're moving to the next phase of the day. That third one always felt like it was coming in the middle of something, like I was flowing maybe during work, or it never felt quite as natural to flow into that in the same way that the other 4 did. So those were the 2 hardest parts, the third prayer, just in general, and then filming, trying to capture this for you. What did I learn and feel during this experiment? The first is that recitations are trance-inducing. I think moving forward, I want to start looking up other prayers, because I really enjoyed how the recitations felt. The recitations and the dancing actually felt the most like what I thought this whole thing would feel like, in terms of like feeling very close to God and or like outside of normal consciousness. The second is that I do feel really tapped in, but it's incredibly subtle. Like, if anything, I just feel hypersensitive. I mean, I think this is all just intuition, is really what I'm feeling. I think my intuition has gotten louder and more clear. So previously, I think my experience of my intuition would be, I might be like walking and I feel like a tingling in my shoulder, and then 10 seconds later, somebody like kicks a ball nearby and I have to kind of duck out of the way. That tingling in my shoulder, that would have been how I experienced my intuition. I feel like now what happens is, as I'm walking down the street, I'll hear, or I'll know, hear in quotes, I'll receive the information that I need to take 2 steps to the side. And then I do, and then whatever, a child runs past me. Or actually, this did happen. I was walking somewhere and I was like, I need to go closer to the building. And then I did, and then somebody threw a bunch of trash out of their window as they were driving by. That's, I would say, the main feeling that I got out of this particular experiment, is I just feel like a clearer relationship to my intuition. I will add that I cried so much this month, like so much. There were several things where I was like, I thought I was good. Like, I thought I was done here, that just like came up and moved through me that I wasn't expecting. And I'm like, why did this even come back up? I mean, you might hear in one of my recent videos, but like my breakup from like 7 months ago at this point was very present in my mind. And that was really hard, actually. I think it would have happened anyways, because to be honest, the sun was in my 12th house. Surprise, I like astrology. But I think that I would not have been able to hold the capacity of them without this like closeness to divine guides. I feel like I was supported, and I feel like the sheer amount of prayer I did contributed a lot to how much I felt that support. Moving right along, to wrap this up, I want to talk about what I'm bringing forward from this experiment. The first thing is recitations, for sure. I really enjoyed that. I want to kind of integrate that into different parts of my life. I'm thinking particularly with diving. When I am learning new dives, or when I'm doing something that is scary, that feels scary in my body, I like the idea, and I think that recitations could be really helpful as a thing that directs that like nervous energy into a more useful channel. The next thing that I'm bringing forward is actually a more relaxed attitude towards prayer, which might seem a little counterintuitive, but because I was praying 5 times a day, it basically became just like another hygiene task. It felt like the same as brushing my teeth. Whereas I feel like even though I was praying regularly before this, not necessarily every day, but pretty regularly, I did always feel this sense of like, oh, it's got to be an event. Like, there's pomp, there's circumstance. I got to bring something to the table here. There were a lot of days where I like show up to the altar and I was like, I ain't got shit to say. We're just hanging out, homie. Like, I'm just going to sit here in silence and we're going to commune in this way. That's definitely not how I felt beforehand. Beforehand, I felt like I always had to show up with something. So yeah, I'm really grateful for having a more relaxed, a more casual relationship to praying, and I'm really excited to just have that moving forward now. Those are the 3 things that I'm bringing forward from this experiment of praying 5 times a day. Okay, guess what? It's time for the most exciting part of the video. I'm going to be choosing the next assignment. Okay, you can relax. It's not that deep. Okay. It is a little deep because I'm afraid to get the 2 hours outside one because it's going to be February. All right, let's see. Okay, set a specific frequency. This I can do. So if you want to join in on February's challenge, which will be setting a specific frequency for each day, you can click the link it's going to be in a pinned comment. It's also in the description box, but that will add you to the Energy Squad, where you're going to get a document with my process and weekly check-ins. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. If you want to understand how environment impacts your behavior, you can check out this video. Bye.